This week we're going to finish out our complements. We're looking at complements part 2, verb complements. Remember last week we talked about subject complements, and we said that subject complements come after a verb but describe the subject. Verb complements also come after the verb, but they don't describe the subject, and that's the difference. Let's go back to our sentence from last week that we had demonstrating the complement. Right. We use our microscope to zoom in, or magnifying glass, I guess this is. We see Jim gave Amy a ring. Remember, Jim is the subject. The subject always does the action. Gave is the verb. The verb is the action. And we said Amy a ring is the complement. Now we notice that Amy a ring does not describe Jim, which means that these are our verb complements, not our subject complements. Okay, so let's look at our verb complements. We actually call verb complements objects. This is the definition. Objects are nouns or pronouns which follow a verb but do not describe the subject. Okay, so they're not predicate nominatives because they do not describe the subject. So in this case, we have to use them as an object. That's the definition. So you can see our sentence, James gave Amy a ring. So now we can be specific. Because we know the verb complements, we can say that Amy and ring are both objects. And now each of them are a different type of object. So just like we have two types of subject complements, we have two types of verb complements. Okay, the first type, the direct object. The direct object receives the action directly. Because they receive the action directly from the verb, they can always answer the question, verb what? Okay, so you can see that down there. If I take my verb from our sentence, Jim gave Amy a ring. Gave is the verb, so I'm inserting that in, and I say gave what? What did Jim give? Well, Jim gave a ring. So the ring would be my direct object in that sentence. That is what Jim gave. Jim gave a ring. The receiver of the ring, in this case Amy, becomes the indirect object. Indirect objects will answer the question to whom, because they get the action indirectly, hence their name. So we can see our sentence again. Jim gave what? Jim gave a ring to whom? To Amy. Amy becomes the indirect object. I do have some tips for you in case you're starting to feel a little confused as to when you know something's a direct object or when something's an indirect object. Okay, so let's look at our object tips. Verb complements will always follow the subject, verb, indirect object, direct object pattern. That means that in a sentence, you always have a subject, a verb, and then the indirect object followed by the direct object. That is the pattern it will be. Indirect objects will be between the verb and the direct object. Always, always, always. You will never have a sentence in which the indirect object is not between the verb and the direct object. And you'll find out why next week. But for now, just know the indirect object must come between the verb and the direct object. Note, a sentence that has a direct object may not have an indirect object. There may not be a to whom in your sentence. However, sentences will never just have an indirect object without a direct object. If can't have a to whom without a what. So be aware of that. So if you follow these tips, you should be fairly successful at pulling out direct objects and indirect objects. So let's practice. Here you see I have 3 sentences. Okay, we're going to look at them one at a time. And I want you to identify the direct object and the indirect object in each sentence. So let's look at sentence number 1. I enjoy pizza. Take a moment. Substitute verb. What? Enjoy what? Ask yourself, is there a to whom? Okay, so that means for this sentence, only pizza is our direct object. So I say verb what, and saying enjoy what? Well, I enjoy pizza. So pizza is the direct object. There's no to whom. I have no indirect object. Now let's go to the next sentence. I paid Felix the money for the pizza. Okay. Take a moment to do verb what to whom, so you can come up with a direct object and indirect object. Verb what to whom. You should have came up with money as a direct object. Gave what? Gave money to whom? To Felix. So Felix is the indirect object. Let's try one more sentence. Felix and I did not give Jim any pizza. Okay. Give what? To whom? Give what? To whom? You should have written down pizza as the direct object and Jim as the indirect object. And that's all there is to it, to verb complement. So we will continue to practice with this week and kind of wrap up that second part of the complete thought sentence.